When people hear the word prophecy, they often imagine a distant voice, thunder from the heavens, visions of doom and glory written across the skies. But those who walk the inner path understand this. True prophecy is not about predicting the future. It is about awakening the present. It is not a warning about what will happen. It is a call to see what is already unfolding. On July 7, 2025, the veil did not lift to show a world that might be. It lifted to show us the world that already is. It was not about numbers, timelines, or visions of fire. It was about a reflection, pure and quiet, of how far humanity has drifted from its center. Because the most dangerous sleep is not physical, it is spiritual. A society can walk, speak, build, even thrive materially, and yet remain asleep where it matters most. This is why heaven does not shout, quote, it is not essentially dangerously close to the center. This is why heaven does not shout. The more it looks like death, it whispers. And on that day it whispered not to kings or rulers, but to the silent ones, those who listen in solitude, those who sit in the space between noise and stillness, and to them the message was clear. Return. Return to the origin. Return to the breath. Return to the integrity that cannot be purchased, the clarity that cannot be manufactured. In our rush to construct systems, economies, fame, and empires, we have forgotten the most essential structure, the one within. No outer kingdom can stand when the inner one has collapsed. And yet, that is precisely where we are now. A world with strong walls and weak hearts. A world that builds outward but falls inward. The prophecy was not a prediction of external catastrophe. It was a mirror held to the soul of mankind. A chance to see ourselves without distortion, without excuse. And that is perhaps why prophecy is feared, not because it tells us something new, but because it reminds us of something ancient, something we have been running from, ourselves. The human being, left without direction, becomes reactive, chaotic, unstable. But this is not our natural state. The natural state is balance. And to return to balance, one must first recognize the imbalance. That recognition is the purpose of prophecy. And on July 7, 2025, heaven did not give instructions. It gave insight into what we have cultivated. A culture addicted to distraction. A generation raised on speed but starved of stillness. A global mind filled with information but devoid of wisdom. That day was not about events, it was about awakening. It was a sacred offering. A moment when time paused long enough for the aware to breathe in the truth and exhale the illusion. And what is that illusion? That change will come from the outside, that someone else will fix what is broken, that progress can replace presence. These are the lies we tell ourselves to delay the work that must be done. The real work, not in policies or protests, but in perception. Not in revolutions, but in realizations. The prophecy came not to announce destruction, but to ask a question. Are you ready to wake up? Because awakening is not comfortable. Huh? So come you to me, if you are to wake up. Because awakening is not comfortable. It does not confirm your biases or stroke your ego. It strips away everything that is false and invites you to stand naked before truth. Most people will turn away, they will laugh, distract, deny, But the few who remain, the ones who sit in the fire of clarity, they are the seeds of the new. They are not loud, they are not seen, but they are the true response to heaven's call. And what happens when we do wake up? The world outside may remain the same for a time, but the lens through which we see it changes, and that changes everything, because the world is not what it is what we are. A clear mind sees clearly, a fearful mind sees enemies, a humble heart creates peace, an angry one invites war. This is the law not of mysticism, but of energy. What you are, you project. What you project, you receive. This is why the prophecy did not speak in riddles, it spoke in silence. Because silence is the true language of the sacred. And those who understand it need no explanation. They already know. They have seen the signs, not in the sky, but in themselves. The fatigue that comes from living falsely, the anxiety that arises from chasing shadows, the ache of disconnection. These are not medical problems, they are spiritual symptoms. These are not medical problems, they are spiritual symptoms. The prophecy was a diagnosis. The medicine is awareness. And how does one begin? Not by reading more, not by speaking more, but by doing less. Sit, breathe, observe, slowly, patiently, relentlessly, until the illusions begin to dissolve, until the mind calms, until the noise fades. Only then does the real message emerge. And that message is not a sentence, it is not words, it is a presence, a knowing, a recognition of something timeless within you, something that has never been lost, only forgotten. The prophecy did not arrive to show you something you didn't know. It came to remind you of what you already are. And in that remembrance lies liberation. The world will always move fast. Storms will always come. But the tree rooted deeply does not fear the wind. The individual grounded in awareness does not panic at change. This is why heaven spoke, not to threaten but to anchor, not to frighten but to realign. And now the responsibility is ours, not to spread fear but to become still, not to argue or prove or convert, but to live as if the prophecy is alive in every breath, because it is. The moment you become aware, you are the fulfillment of that sacred message. The moment you choose stillness over chaos, truth over illusion, breath over impulse, you are no longer reacting. You are no longer reacting. You are no longer reacting. You are responding. And response is the beginning of transformation. So do not wait for signs in the sky. Look within. The stars you seek are not above, they are within your chest, waiting to shine through clear awareness. The voice of heaven does not come from outside. It rises from the silence between your thoughts. That is where the prophecy lives. And on July 7th, 2025, it did not begin. It was remembered. So July 7, 2025, it did not begin. It was remembered. It is contrasted by the sight that begins to shine from the Boto. That is where the prophecy lives. And on July 7, 2025, it did not begin. It was remembered. Now the question remains, will you remember too? There is a deep misconception that when heaven speaks, the world must change instantly. That mountains must crumble, oceans must rise, and the heavens themselves must split open in fire. But such events, while dramatic, are not the hallmark of divine messages. When heaven speaks, it does not force transformation. It extends an invitation. It offers a moment of choice, and that is where true power resides, not in the thunderous voice from above, but in the silent yes whispered within. The prophecy unveiled on July 7, 2025 was not meant to cause global upheaval. It was meant to stir the soul, to offer a sacred pause amidst the rush of daily life, where each person could reflect and ask, am I aligned with what is true? Because no matter how loud the external world becomes, it cannot drown out the responsibility of the inner one. When you understand this, you begin to see the deeper function of prophecy. It does not override your life. It offers you a new lens through which to see it. This is why most will overlook it. They wait for the world to shift first. They want external validation before making internal change. But the essence of divine messages is that they respect free will. They honor autonomy. And that means the transformation that follows is not forced. It is chosen. The individual who hears a call and decides to walk a different path does so not because they are commanded, but because they are awakened. That is the power of true prophecy. It does not dictate, it reveals. And once something is revealed, you cannot unsee it. The invitation from heaven is not made with urgency, it is made with clarity. You are invited to leave behind distraction, to step out of the noise, to begin again. The world does not need another clever plan, it needs presence. It needs individuals who have found clarity within themselves, who can stand firm, not because the world is stable, but because they are. That stability is not granted through external success. It is cultivated through discipline, awareness, humility. And none of these qualities are accidental. They are practiced moment by moment, day by day. And once you find this, then you are no longer pressured to conform, to please others, to make your point, to not talk back and not to comply, to be satisfied, to apologize, to beg pardon. The prophecy did not say, wait for a sign. It said, become one. Let your life be the message. Let your silence be your strength. Let your intention be your temple. To those who understand, this is not a burden, it is a blessing. To know that the future is not imposed but shaped by present awareness. That the storms outside can be calmed by the peace within. That your response to chaos is the true measure of your alignment. Let your first instinct be your true measure. Let your storms outside can be calmed by the peace within. That your storms outside can be calmed by the peace within. That your storms outside can be calmed by the peace within. This is what the world so desperately needs. Not more reaction, but response. And response only comes from those who have chosen to listen beyond their opinions, beyond their conditioning, beyond their fears. They have heard the still voice, not once, but many times. Every morning in the quiet breath before the noise begins. Every night in the silence before sleep. The message is always present, but it takes courage to hear it. So believe me when I say, without them, we would never have heard the still voice. Not more to do, nor to hide, but to be here without delay, to discern, to discover. to discern, to disseminate, to decipher. What is that message? It is simple. You are responsible. Not for the entire world, but for your corner of it. For your thoughts, your actions, your presence. The way you speak, the way you treat others, the way you hold yourself when no one is watching. This is where the prophecy becomes real, not in the clouds, but in the kitchen, the street, the meeting room, the classroom. In ordinary moments made sacred by awareness. Haha. Because when you choose to act from clarity, you are not just reacting to the world, you are shaping it. And if enough people begin to do this, silently, consistently, without praise or attention, the world itself begins to shift. Not because it was forced, but because it was invited. There is a quiet revolution happening. It is not broadcast on screens, it does not go viral, but it is the most important movement of our time. Individuals waking up, choosing stillness over speed, choosing depth over distraction, choosing integrity over image. These are the seeds of real change. This is the legacy of prophecy, not a record of things foretold, but a trail of choices made by the awakened. Those who refused to follow blindly, who stopped and asked the question, is this aligned with truth? Every time someone answers yes, the invitation of heaven is accepted. And is accepted. And that acceptance is the true miracle. You do not need to wait for another date. You do not need more signs. You do not need permission. What you need is already within you. The capacity to become still. To observe your thoughts without being controlled by them. To feel deeply without drowning in emotion. To act with compassion even when it is not returned. This is the highest form of listening. And it is through this listening that the prophecy is fulfilled. Because the world outside reflects the world inside. And if the inside becomes clear, so too will the outer landscape shift. It may not be immediate, it may not be dramatic, but it will be real. And that reality is far more powerful than spectacle. Because it lasts. A mind that has touched stillness cannot be shaken easily. A heart that has tasted truth does not settle for illusion. And finally, a heart that has tasted truth does not settle for illusion. A life rooted in awareness cannot be uprooted by circumstance. This is the strength that prophecy points to. Not the strength to conquer others, but to conquer oneself. Not the power to control the world, but to master the self. And that self-mastery, practiced in quiet repetition, becomes the beacon for others. So when you hear that heaven has spoken, do not look around. Look within. Ask yourself, what am I being invited to see? Often the answer is not comfortable. It may expose your habits, your attachments, your avoidance. But it will also reveal your potential, the part of you that is not afraid, the part that knows what must be done, the part that is already ready, waiting for your permission to rise. Let that part lead, let that part guide you. And you will find that the world you feared begins to transform, not because it changed, but because you did. Now, let me lift you and support you, knowing it is not up to you, but up to me. Let me lift you and support you, knowing it is not up to 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 you. The prophecy of July 7, 2025 is not over. It is not a single moment in time. It is a doorway now open. And every moment that you step through with awareness, you honor it. Every breath taken in presence is a vow to walk in alignment. You do not need to announce it. You do not need to explain it. Just live it. And let that life be your offering. Because when heaven speaks, it is not demanding worship. Because when heaven speaks, it is not demanding worship, it is asking for witness. Not passive observation, but active presence. Not fear, but courage. The courage to become what you were always meant to be. This is how prophecy becomes destiny. Not through force, but through response. The choice is yours. The invitation remains.